Welcome, fellow clean freaks, to a special Halloween episode of Haunted Housekeeping. I'm your host, Melissa Maker. Tonight, or today, we'll dive into the creepiest cleaning tales that will have you looking over your shoulder the next time you dust a shelf. Listeners, beware. We'll start with some light, scary stories to ease you in, and then we'll get to the heavy-duty stuff. Kind of cleaning scaries you would never want to encounter. These are spooky cleaning stories found on the internet as told by the writer. From haunted hospitals to ghosts that finish your chores, these stories will leave you wondering, what's lurking in the dust? So, get your microfiber cloths, your all-purpose cleaner, and take me with you as you clean. Just remember that if a mop falls down when you weren't looking, it most certainly
was not a ghost.
First, the hospital push. Imagine cleaning in a place where the walls have seen countless lives end. In one hospital, a housekeeper found that some spirits just aren't ready to leave. I worked at a hospital cleaning operating rooms. On one of my end-of-the-day shifts where I had to deep clean and then shut off the lights in one of the theaters, I had just turned off the lights and turned around to walk out. Suddenly, I felt a sensation of being pushed on my right shoulder, like someone wanted me out of that room now. Only I was the only person in that operating ward, and at that time of night. It was an old hospital, and I'm sure a number of people must have passed away in there. It was as if some spirit didn't want me in there. I don't believe in ghosts at all, but I nearly had to change my underwear after that. Well, cleaning is stressful enough without a ghostly interference. Could you imagine an angry spirit pushing you out the door? Rebecca's last walk. Even after death, some people need to take that one last walk. In this retirement home, a housekeeper saw a resident that simply wasn't ready to leave. I work in a retirement home. It's technically a low-care nursing home for people who are mostly able to care for themselves. So we had this lady living there named Rebecca. Rebecca was a smoker, but otherwise rather fit and healthy. She lived on the 3rd floor and would always take the stairs to and from her smoke breaks. She would also go out for walks many times a day, as the home is right in the river valley. We have 3 staircases in the building, and the one nearest to her suite was the one that she would always take. Anyway, one day, a fellow housekeeper who would always go out for a smoke with Rebecca came to me upset, saying that Rebecca just got diagnosed with kidney cancer. Well, I guess Rebecca had gone through kidney cancer before and had settled on not wanting to go through it again. She was diagnosed with it and then died 5 days later. Honestly, I think she died more from not wanting to have cancer again than actually having cancer. She wanted to die in her suite and had round-the-clock nursing care for those 5 days. After she died, everyone was pretty upset. Having anyone in the building die is horrible. A lady just died a month ago while eating lunch in the dining room. But Rebecca was well known, and everyone liked her. About 2 days after she had died, I was up on the 3rd floor cleaning the railings. I walked past the staircase Rebecca liked to take multiple times a day. These staircases are closed off with a fire door, and the fire doors have a skinny little window on the left side. The staircases all have big windows on the landings between floors, so the staircases, and therefore the skinny windows, are pretty well lit, plus the actual lighting in the staircases. As I walked by this particular one, I could see out the corner of my eye a black shape on the other side of the door. Now, when someone is coming through the door, you can see their face and their body because there's a sconce light on the inside of the door. But this was just a black shape, like shoulders and a head, but just black. I knew it was Rebecca, just offhand, and I scurried as quickly as I could down the hallway, back to the laundry room. It both scared the crap out of me because I wasn't expecting it, and comforted me because it was Rebecca. I'm not scared to go into those staircases because I know Rebecca is gone now. I think she just needed to walk those stairs one more time. before moving on. It's comforting to think that Rebecca just needed to say goodbye, but I wouldn't want to be there cleaning on a night shift. Would you? Room 3379. Some rooms, bedrooms, hotel rooms, and hospital rooms, as we've seen, should never be cleaned, or so they say. Room 3379 is one of those rooms where even housekeepers fear to tread. I worked as a housekeeper at a hospital several years ago. After I'd been there nearly a year, I happened to overhear two nurses having a conversation. So, have you heard about what our hospital is known for? No. What? Apparently, there have been lots of cases of paranormal activity here. What? Oh yeah, at least 5 or 6 document cases. We've had clocks fly off the wall and across the room, patients scream and claim they see hands and a face coming through the walls, people seeing shadow figures, all of that. But the worst were the exorcisms. Exorcisms? Yeah. And not only that, but after the exorcisms were performed, the activity in those rooms got so bad that they had to close the rooms off. Some are used for storage now, and others you can't even get access to. One of them is right down the hall. There. Nurse A points to the last room at the very end of a long hallway. Room 3379. Nurse B looks as if she's regretting her life choices and turns back to her paperwork. The story scared me, to be sure, but I did my best to put it out of my mind. My day went on, and I was cleaning a room when a nurse approached me and requested that I bring a specific bed for the room. It's a bed that has a large metal contraption at the top of it so that you can attach things to help lift or reposition patients. So I call my team lead and I ask her to help me find the bed that nurse asked for. After 10 to 20 minutes, my lead calls me back and she says they can't find an available bed anywhere. A cold feeling starts forming in my stomach. Instinctively, I knew what was about to happen, though I tried to shove that thought from my mind. Well, if there's no available bed, there's nothing we can do, I said, hoping to end the conversation. The team lead said, "Oh, wait, we found a location that has one of those beds listed in its inventory. Go get it." I swallowed nervously. Okay, where is it? The team lead said, 3 Tower, the orthopedic unit, room 3379. Ice cold fear dropped like a rock in my stomach. I tried to convince myself that it would be okay, but I didn't know what to expect. I glanced at the clock. It was 9 p.m. and pitch black outside. Not the bewitching hour, sure, but it still made me nervous. I got to the unit and it felt about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This is important for later. I slowly made my way down that long and now dimly lit hallway, my footfalls echoing down an otherwise noiseless corridor, putting me on edge. Finally, I stood in front of the door. I took a shaky breath before gripping the door handle and pushing the door. I was greeted with a blast of ice-cold air straight to my face. This is normal, I rationalized. The room hadn't been used in ages. No light, no heat, no people to warm it up. Of course it would be cold, right? Peering into the room, I saw that it was far more spacious than the other rooms on the unit, and it was filled to the brim with hospital beds. Eventually, my eyes caught a gleam of metal. I'd found the bed I needed, and it was in the furthest, darkest corner of the room. Of course, I hissed through gritted teeth and began angrily tugging at bed after bed, guiding them out of the room. At last, I had opened a path to the bed that I needed. I stepped into the gloom, the only light coming from the hallway outside the door. I searched for a light switch, only to find it didn't work. Again, I rationalized. They cut the power to the room as well. It makes sense. They aren't using the room. I purposely walked further into the room, trying to ignore that chill in the air. I made it to the back of the room where it was nearly pitch black. I could make out the bed and a few other things. I placed my hands on the bed, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The atmosphere around me shifted somehow. I distinctly felt that I wasn't alone in that room. I slowly turned, facing where I felt the source of this alarming feeling coming from, until I saw it. A pair of glowing red eyes. At first, I couldn't believe it. I squinted, glanced at the area surrounding it. At first, I assumed it was light coming from the TV still mounted on the wall, until I remembered that they had cut power to this room. I tensed, my blood running cold, as this being seemed to slowly start taking shape. It had a general humanoid figure, and it was pitch black. The only defining features were its glowing eyes and now noticeable horns at the top of its head. I had been raised in a church my entire life. I believe in God and Satan and his demons, but I never expected to run into one. No one does. I don't know what came over me that day, but I started talking to what I now believe was a demonic entity. I'm going to take this bed and I'm going to leave. And if you don't want to be sent back where you came from, you will leave me alone. It didn't respond, only turned its head to watch me as I left the room, all the while never breaking eye contact with me. After I made it out of that room, I shoved all the beds back in there, shut the door, and ran. I never went back into that unit again. Red eyes in the dark? That's a big nope for me. Guess some rooms are better left dusty. The helpful ghost. Ghosts don't always have to be terrifying. Some of them just might want to help you with your chores. This is the story of the butler or maid that haunts my house. For some reason, chores started randomly being completed. Dishes being put away, or clean swept floors, and more. But the creepiest experience I have ever seen with this ghost happened when I was folding laundry. I wanted it out of the basket that it was in because it was overflowing with towels. So I threw the towels onto the floor and saw them flop onto the ground, grabbed the next handful, and threw that onto the previous pile. Then I realized that I missed a washcloth. I bent over to grab it. Once I do, I look back, and all the towels that were in that pile were now folded and sorted by size. I quickly fold the washcloth and stack it all, then run up the stairs with it. Still, one of the most unexplained horrors I have ever seen to this day. Activity from this ghost has been low since December 2021, and I hope it stays that way. A ghost that helps with laundry? Honestly, I wouldn't mind sharing my house with that kind of spirit. Maybe I could train it to mop, too. The haunted new house. Not all hauntings happen in old, creepy, decrepit homes. In fact, this cleaning service found that sometimes even brand new homes can come with unwanted guests. My name is Lori, and I own a small cleaning service in the Pittsburgh area. I have 22 customers and 2 employees, CJ and Marie. I'm writing this story about one house in particular. Yep, the haunted one. Before I begin, I would like to tell all of you non-believers of the paranormal to chill out. I'm not looking for ghosties, they just show up. In the past, if I saw something or heard a misplaced noise, I would just pass it off as whatever. Now, I'm paying a little bit more attention. In June of 2008, I got my first customer in a very nice neighborhood with all new houses. The economy was not affecting this hood. From that customer, I was able to get 2 other houses. One was a couple with 2 dogs, and the other was a family with 3 little girls. All was great. When we first started cleaning these homes, all 3 of us would go together. The house with the family is quite large, 5,000 square feet or so. So as a group, we would go and work our way through all 3 levels. The first odd thing that I would notice and shrug off was that when we walked into the house, we would all feel like someone was home. I would call out for several moments without a response before realizing that no one was at home. The other strange thing was the door that we would enter would always shut on me, and sometimes it would lock. Okay, not so strange, but enough for me to always hang on to my keys. Then this little weird stuff started to happen. A roll of paper towels spread across the grand foyer, cleaning rags tossed down the steps. I would blame my helpers. What are they doing? This seemed to be the norm. Now, the fun starts. 6 months into cleaning, the customer requested weekly service, but only of the main floor and the master bath. No problem. I or Marie could come by ourselves on the opposite weeks. Marie said no, so that meant I would have to do it. Still, no problem. I went my first time by myself, and once again that feeling that someone was home was overwhelming. I made it through the whole main floor with no problem. I went upstairs to tackle the master bath. My foot hit the top step, and I heard a door slam somewhere in the house. I called out once again, "Hello, is someone home?" No one was home. I proceeded down the hallway lugging 2 sweepers, a bucket, and a bag full of supplies. As I was walking, a rubber ball rolls past me in the master bedroom. Where did that come from? Whatever, I cleaned the bathroom. It took an hour. While gathering all my stuff, I heard a crowd of voices coming from the foyer downstairs. Once again, I called out, "Hello, who's home?" I got all the way down there with my stuff, and no one was there. Weeks went by with some weird stuff, but once again, it could have been shrugged off as whatever. And then the day came when I saw him. I once again got to the top step, and for some reason, on this day, I looked down that long hallway, and I could not make my legs move. I was frozen. I felt a sense of dread. "What?" I said to myself. "Get your butt moving and clean that bathroom." I did. After completing my task, I began gathering my supplies as usual. As I walked into the master bedroom, I kicked something, and I looked down. It was that rubber ball again. Now, where did this come from? As I said it, I felt a crack of static electricity. I looked up and said to a man, "Oh, you're home?" As these words were coming out of my mouth, he disappeared before my eyes. What just happened? Was that real? Did I imagine it? Am I crazy? Every hair on the back of my neck was sticking straight up. I was covered in chills and sweat. I did what any reasonable woman would do. I grabbed my stuff and ran. Now, the story does not end here. This is actually the beginning. Yep, I really did see a ghost, and no, I do not believe I'm crazy. I had a million questions running through my mind, one of which is, how can there be a ghost in a brand new home? Well, I did some research and I discovered that spirits can also be attached to people, land, or personal items. I will tell you this makes perfect sense to me since my mother once gave my ex-husband a haunted clock. She found this dusty old Coca-Cola clock at a yard sale. It drove him crazy because sometimes it would keep perfect time, sometimes it would stop, and other times it would keep backwards time. Sometimes it would fall off the wall for no reason. Shortly after I moved out, the neighbor reported that the clock was out with the trash. Anyway, as time went on, I began to wonder more and more about this fella that I saw and who he was. The research I did about the land that this house was on uncovered that it was at one time farmland. I don't know if this fellow was one of the farmers who worked this land. I remember him in pale clothing, but nothing stands out in my memory other than his slight build and graying hair. I also thought maybe he was attached to an item in the house, but without snooping through drawers and closets, everything I saw looked newer. Weeks passed without any interruptions to my cleaning efforts. I go to the neighbor's house that I originally contracted as a customer. I was cleaning her dining room windows, which faced the haunted house. I reached for the Windex, and I saw movement out of the corner of my eye in one of the windows of that haunted house. I thought, I wonder who that was. I said it aloud, and Nancy, the customer who I was cleaning for, asked me if I was talking to her. I told her I thought someone was at the home next door and that I saw someone in the window. She said, "No, they're at work, but I saw someone looking out that window too." I turned and looked at her, and she had a look on her face that said she knew something. I told her that strange things sometimes happen over there when I clean. She proceeded to tell me that they first looked at that house before deciding to build this one, and she said she got very disturbed when they went onto the second floor. She said that she felt uncomfortable in one of the bedrooms upstairs as well. I asked her if the owners had noticed the presence in the house. She said the only thing that they had ever mentioned is that the girls won't sleep in their own bedrooms, and so they all camp out in the master bedroom. I wonder why. Nancy also told me that on several occasions, weird things have happened in her own house. The one thing that stood out to me was that she said she had also heard groups of people conversing in the foyer when she was upstairs in her home. Interesting. Well, I guess seeing my ghostie in the window that day was his way of letting me know that my next cleaning day there was going to be crazy. It was my day to clean alone. I arrived at my usual 9 a.m. start time. I unlocked the door and prepared to go in. Just as I turned the knob, I heard the deadbolt lock again. What the? Now, my key wouldn't turn in the lock. This went on for 5 minutes. I was getting upset. I was now angry, and I decided I would walk around to the front door and go in that way. The only problem was I would have to run through the house to reach the security box before the alarm sounded off. I got to the front door, put my key in the deadbolt. It unlocked the doorknob. Success. Before I opened the door, I prepared for my sprint through the house. Ready, set, go. I dashed through the grand foyer and round the corner to the hall that led to the kitchen. The door to the hall closet opened. Ouch! I ran into it, but I kept moving. There was a stool in the hall. I leapt over it and landed on that damn rubber ball again. It's okay. I was still on my feet, and I was now flying through the kitchen. I arrived at the security box and got my code in with seconds to spare. Whew, what a workout. The security box is by the back door, which I couldn't get unlocked just a few minutes before. Yet I looked at the door, and it was unlocked. Shaking my head, I carried on a one-sided conversation with the ghostie, telling him, please don't play games. I have to do a good job. I am poor and I need to make money. I can't get sidetracked by such shenanigans as this. Did I hear a giggle? I completed my work in the house and I decided to leave the owners a note to have the lock checked, even though I know there's not a damn thing wrong with it. I put the note on the counter and I saw movement by the sink. The dish towel that was hanging in the middle of the dishwasher was slowly sliding to the right. I said, hey, the towel fell to the floor. I walked over. It was like I was walking into a freezer. I picked up the towel and hung it neatly on the handle. Okay, I'm leaving now. Please keep the place clean. Thank you. Once again, I grabbed my stuff and ran. New house or old, you never know who or what, including rubber balls, might be hiding behind closed doors. And that's a wrap for this episode of Haunted Housekeeping. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, next time you clean, remember, you might not be alone in those dusty corners. Stay spooky, stay clean, and have a happy Halloween.